Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast, your home for all the latest Minnesota Lynx and WNBA news, analysis, and coverage. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I'm your host, Mitchell Hansen. And man, what a Final Four we have in the WNBA. What a semifinal round we have in the WNBA. We have 4 teams left standing. As I mentioned, on one side we have the second-seeded Minnesota Lynx facing off against the third-seeded Connecticut Sun. And then on the other half, it's a WNBA Finals rematch of the Las Vegas Aces, the 4th seed, facing off against the top-seeded New York Liberty. But man, as I'm recording this podcast, as you're potentially listening to it, we're through one game in the semifinals. We're entering game 2, still in Brooklyn and in Minneapolis in those respective series, but. Man, it's gonna be a dogfight through the rest of the semifinals, and it's gonna set up for a really fun finals. Whoever does come out of both sides, or whoever ends up facing each other for the league crown. So it's been fun. It's these two matchups are gonna be very evenly matched. It's gonna be back and forth throughout the semifinals, but that's exactly what you expect, and that's what you want at this time of the year. You want the best of the best battling it out. And it's fun that we get to see it over a 5-game span, potentially a 5-game span, but a best-of-5 series. And seeing the constant chess match that is a series. It's a lot of fun to watch. This is personally my favorite round of the WNBA playoffs. Yes, the finals are great, but I really do like the semifinals because tensions are high, emotions are high. And it's fun to watch, those Final Four teams battle it out to try and get a spot in the finals. So it's been a fun postseason so far, and in this semifinals is setting up to be that and then some. When it comes to the Minnesota Lynx, they dropped Game 1 against the Connecticut Sun. It was a game that Minnesota just kind of looked off from the beginning, and that's a credit to the Sun. That's a credit to their defense. That's something that I wrote at Canis Hoopus and Winsider before the series, previewing this series, that defense was going to be a very, very key thing, and it's going to be an X factor for both teams. Connecticut had the best defense in the league in 2024 during the regular season. And Minnesota was right behind them, like less than a point behind them in defensive rating. So these two teams are very solid on both ends of the court, and that's going to make for a very even series as we saw during the regular season series, but it's going to make for an even closer series here in the semifinals, I believe. With both teams being so evenly matched, and it's basically going to come down to which team is going to be able to do enough to win by maybe a handful of points, because I think every single game in this series could be decided by less than 5 points. So it's about making those little plays, those little moments throughout the game that amount to putting you over the edge. And then in Game 1, Connecticut just did that a little bit more than Minnesota. Minnesota struggled a little bit offensively, shooting the ball notably in the first quarter and in the first half, and they weren't as polished defensively as we've seen from them, over the last stretch of the regular season and so far in the postseason. And then Connecticut they were able to hit from deep. Marina Mabrey has been playing outstanding this postseason. And Connecticut's just a tough team. She adds another aspect to this team that makes them a very scary team. But with that said, we do, as I mentioned, have a couple game 2s. I'm set to play on Tuesday. Oh my gosh, it's October 1st. And it's hard to believe we're already in October, but we're here. We have a couple game 2s on October 1st, as I mentioned. And then the series shifts to the lower seed. So the Minnesota-Connecticut series will then shift to Connecticut for games 3 and 4, potentially returning back to Minnesota for game 5. And then the Liberty and Aces series will go to Las Vegas for games 3 and 4. And potentially returning to Brooklyn for Game 5. So with that said, I'm really excited to introduce this guest to you that I have on the podcast this week. Somebody who's been so close to this team all season long, somebody who's been there throughout the the maybe the roller coaster or the positive ride that has been the Minnesota Lynx this season. And he's in his first season with the Minnesota Lynx, and he does an outstanding job. If you're not already familiar with him, you should be. He's a very talented individual, and he's definitely an up and coming a star in his profession. But that's none other than Lynx play-by-play radio voice Wendell Epps. Wendell has I've been following him all season long since he got here, since he started as the play-by-play voice for the Minnesota Lynx, and he's done an outstanding job, not only on the podcast, but or not only on the broadcast, I should say, but with their podcasts on their YouTube channel and other content, whether it's on social media or website, whatever it may be, that Wendell does. So he does a great job, very passionate. And it was a lot of fun talking to him about this team, the postseason so far, both sides of the postseason bracket, as well as a deep dive into the Minnesota and Connecticut series. So without further ado, let's jump right into the podcast with Wendell Epps. Wendell, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mitchell. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for joining. I know that a lot of our listeners they should know you. I mean, if they're tuning into any Lynx game, you're the voice. But if you could just kind of give us a little bit of insight on who you are and where people can kind of follow you if they're not already doing so.
Sure. So my name is Wendell Epps. I'm the radio play-by-play broadcaster for the Minnesota Lynx, but I also do a lot of other things on the content side for the team itself. I'm the host of the Lynx Unleashed podcast. That's our new official podcast of Minnesota Lynx. You can catch all those episodes weekly on our YouTube channel on the Minnesota Lynx. And then also, as far as our radio broadcast goes, we do a lot of our games over on KFan 100.3 FM. You can also listen to our games exclusively on the Minnesota Lynx app and the iHeartRadio app. But also a lot of big things that I do with my job is I'm very active on social media, specifically over on X. You can follow me there at Epps_Wendell. Post a lot of behind the scenes content of my reactions in the booth. I've had a lot of great calls this year, Mitchell, because we've been winning a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm all about bringing high energy broadcasts. And it's my first year with the Lynx. It's the first time we've had radio back in a couple of years. And I could be more blessed to be in this position. And the Lynx fan base has been awesome. And, we got people like you that are doing a great job covering our team. So I'm certainly blessed to be here.
Well, I appreciate that, and I also just want to say it's been awesome following your work all season long, whether it's on social media, listening to broadcasts, or even on TV. I saw you on TV the other night before game
Yeah.
two. So you're doing a great job, and it's really nice to have that back. I mean, it's the last person I believe was Sloan Martin, who's also extremely talented, but having this back is great, and it's not just the radio aspect of things, but like you said, the podcast and the other content that you create as well. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun following your work and kind of seeing your involvement. And I love those calls on social media, by the way, that you were talking about with you recording yourself. Those, like you said, there's been a lot of positive moments. So it's been cool to see those as well. That's one of my favorite things.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah. So what? Let's talk a little bit about you and how you got to this point. Where did you grow up? What kind of got you into this field and what drew you to Minnesota?
So I actually grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. I was born and raised there. So DC sports was my first introduction to sports, which anyone that knows anything about the history of DC sports knows that's probably not the best fan base to get into right away because there's not a lot of winning. But hey,
Well,
you learn.
welcome to Minnesota. It's
Yeah,
it's an up and
exactly.
down
That's what
roller
people have been
coaster.
telling me. Yeah, but you learn how to be a loyal fan. So I was a big NFL and NBA guy growing up. So definitely like the Washington Wizards were just my team. I
Mhm.
was became a fan around the John Wall era when he came and Bradley Beal and that was just my squad. That's really when I got into basketball. I played a lot of basketball growing up, AAU, any rec or summer league I could. Played throughout high school as well. And then eventually, once I was figuring out where I wanted to go to college, I knew at that point that I wanted to do sports broadcasting. I'd already started my own podcast when I was actually in high school. And I wanted to go out of state. I wanted to kind of venture out and go to a city and a state that I had never been to before.
Hmm.
And originally, I wanted to go to Florida. That was always like my main niche. I wanted to go to Florida for college. I was looking at a couple schools there, but ultimately, I made a pit stop in North Carolina on my way down to a visit for a school in Florida, and I found High Point University, and that was a school that I just instantly fell in love with. At that time, this was around 2018. They had just launched a brand new sports journalism program. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to go ahead and do this. They had promised me that I would get opportunities to be on the air, to call games for the school's athletic teams. And then eventually I was like, yeah, sold. So I went to High Point, became the play-by-play broadcaster for the women's soccer team my freshman year. Then that led to me becoming play-by-play broadcaster for the women's basketball team as well, men's basketball on the side. I did lacrosse. I did every sport you could think of there. So that was basically my role for all 4 years. Did a couple internships throughout college as well. Interned over at Fox Sports in Charlotte, WXI 12 News in Winston-Salem. And then all of that led me to finding a fortunate job straight out of college in the NBA, actually. I got to work with the Orlando Magic this past year as a
Hmm.
radio graduate associate. So kind of their version of basically their internship program, but you're basically on kind of like the full-time staff for a year. And to me, I looked at that opportunity as basically like the like going to grad school on like steroids, because I was able to work with other people my age, and
Hmm.
like it was just really cool being able to be part of that experience. So I worked the Magic season. They had one of their best seasons in recent memory. They ended up making the playoffs, and then when my time was coming up there with the Magic, I had found out about the Lynx opportunity. I saw that they were looking for a radio play-by-play announcer. I've always wanted to be the play-by-play voice for a professional sports team, and
Hmm.
I knew how exciting the WNBA was getting with the attention of the rookie draft class and all that good stuff. And put my name in the hat for the job, and found out that I was going to get interviewed for it, and went through a couple rounds. And then my final round was actually them flying me out to Minnesota. And when I came out to Minnesota, I'd never been to the Midwest in general, so this was all new to me. And everyone was telling me, "Man, it's so cold out there." And I came, I think this was like April. It was still pretty cold, but I was
Yep.
like, I don't know, there's just a cool little vibe here. And I met people within the organization, with the Lynx specifically, and I fell in love with all of them. They were all super nice, and I could tell that it just felt like home right away. So fortunately enough, I was able to get the job after that. And I knew how big it was. When they had given me the call that said I was going to be the next radio play-by-play voice. I knew how many people wanted radio back for the Lynx, and it was a dream come true for me. So I never in a million years, Mitchell, thought I was going to land here in Minneapolis, Minnesota at 23 years old. But here I am. And honestly, Minnesota's this place is awesome, and I'm so blessed to call it home, and I hopefully can be home, for a couple seasons here.
Hmm. Well, that's awesome. That's a really cool story, and I know I speak for a lot of people. We're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're the voice of the Lynx, and it's been a great year so far. But I kind of wanted to ask you as well about what it's been like here so far since you've gotten here. Not only with the Lynx fan base, Minnesota in general, but like you mentioned, being around the team and also the organization as a whole. What's that whole experience been like for you so far?
Oh man, it's been incredible. I am fortunate enough, as you said, to get to travel with this team, which is amazing, and it allows me to be with these players and coaches on a consistent basis. But also,
Hmm.
it allows me to be with them not just on the basketball court, right? I mean, we're always talking on the bus, plane rides, and it's one of those things where it's just you get to know these players and coaches on a deeper level, and even the other staff members, our athletic trainers, our general manager, Claire DeWillius, who is absolutely incredible, has been a great mentor to me. Like, you just get to know these people on a deeper scale, and it really allows like me to be able to like humanize all of these people in the organization more.
Hmm.
And with the season we're having, and obviously for the WNBA, the growth of the league has seen much better travel, which I'm so happy for the players that they're able to be able to have much easier travel schedules now. For me, this has been my first time ever like traveling on this kind of like schedule, because this is my first time really working with a team like this and actually being on the travel list. So it's been really cool going to all of these cities, and These players are so talented on the court. Like we know that there's a reason why they're still here in the postseason, but off the court, they're literally just as they look. If you see them on TV, like they're so genuine. They are the nicest people ever. Anytime I need to interview or anything with them, they're always more than willing to chat with me, and they chat with me for an extended period of time, and they give great sound bites that we always try to play as many as we can on the radio broadcast. Sometimes there's so many, so we have to like select a few, but that's a nice problem to have. It shows how great these players are. So yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. And I remember my first trip with the team was in the preseason. I met them in DC, which was it was home for me, so that was pretty cool. But our first real trip in the regular season was to Seattle. That was our opening night game, and I got to actually introduce myself formally to the team that morning at shoot around. Cheryl Reeve actually told me like, "Hey Wendell, we want you to introduce yourself to all the players and all the organization here that travels with us." And I thought that was special. She didn't have to
Mhm.
do that for me. And I told the players then and there, I was like, my job here is to make you guys look good, whether that's through my play-by-play on the radio side or through the podcast or through the practice reports we do. And yeah, I mean, it's been a season to remember, and it just feels like every day I'm getting closer and closer with all these players. And I love storytelling. That's like my favorite
Mhm.
thing. Media, I love that aspect. So being able to be a part of this ride and seeing all the wins and obviously the Commissioner's Cup championship, it's been honestly this first season has been 100 times better than I ever could have potentially imagined here.
Mhm. Kind of speaking about this season, it's yeah, as you just mentioned, it's been a year to remember. It's been a fun year for the Lynx, not only getting out to a hot start, but sustaining that and even ending the year even hotter. And they're playing their best basketball at the best time right now. But what is in your eyes? What has this season been like, and what we've seen from the Lynx leading up to the semifinal round?
Well, we're just seeing the Lynx team that I mean the motto's been Lynx recognized, and I think we're just seeing the team that you should really recognize. It's so awesome to see like the stories behind all of these players because there's a lot of new additions on this squad. I think that's something that's not being talked about
Hmm.
enough as it really should be. You got Courtney Williams and Alana Smith who were not on this team last year, and here they are now this season playing very pivotal minutes in that starting five. Now Court and Land were teammates in Chicago last year. Alana Smith had what many would call a breakout year, but Alana Smith actually told me at the beginning of the season she felt like last year wasn't even a breakout year. She felt like she knew all along what she was capable of doing here in the WNBA. But Courtney Williams, she's someone that hadn't really played the point guard position here until this year. So you're just looking at players like that, and Natisha Heidemann, like acquiring Maisha Hines Allen midway through the year as well. Like these new players are providing such a big impact on the entire success of this Lynx team. And of course, Nafisa Collier. I mean, what she's been able to
Oh
do this
man.
season, it has been like I say every broadcast, and I have to. I was like, she's just phenomenal. I asked Cheryl Reed to describe Fee using just one word at the beginning of the season. She said phenomenal. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start using phenomenal in every broadcast from now on. Yeah, Nafisa Collier, man, I knew about her coming into this season. I knew she was definitely one of the best players here in the WNBA, but it's a whole other thing to see it in person.
Hmm.
Her and Caleb McBride, Caleb McBuckets, as I call her, like her long ball game is incredible. Like she can just shoot lights out. And I mean, everyone on this team, I can just go on and on about all the success they've had. Bridget Carlton, though, probably is one of my favorite stories here this season. I mean, BC's been with the Lynx for quite some time now since 2019, but here she is this season having her best year in the W yet, and she had to take on a big role early in the season when Diamond Miller went out with the injury. Bridget Carlton came in, she started for her, and she ended up just being an immense impact player in our starting five. So just all the players we have, they all feed off each other, and they're so dangerous, especially that starting five. You don't know who's going to score 15 plus in a game. Sometimes it might be Alana Smith who will go for 18. Sometimes it might be Bridget Carlton who goes for 18. Or
Hmm.
other nights it might be Caleb McBride or Courtney Williams with that lethal mid-range game. There's so many great players outside of Nafisa Collier, who of course is our focal point offensively, but there's so many other great players in addition to her that just really are able to make a difference on the offensive end. And I just feel like when you have so many players that work well together and mesh well, that's just going to create for a lot of success and a lot of wins.
Yeah, that's one thing with this team. They're just they obviously they have talented individuals, but they're such a good cohesive team. And
Right.
that's where you see a lot of those deep runs in the playoffs with, whatever league it is, NBA, WNBA, college game. The teams that get hot but also are playing just complete basketball are the most successful, and those are the ones that make it to the end. And that's exactly what we're seeing from the Lynx. And it's not only been at spurts throughout the year. It's literally been the entire season. Maybe a little bit of a hiccup in the middle part of the year, where they kind of, I don't even know if you want to call it a road bump, but they just weren't as hot as they were, or they are at at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year. But through the highs and the lows, and kind of the uncertainty coming into this year, it's been remarkable of how fast this team has gelled, how great they've turned into, and now they're sitting here, as a legit title contender, which I don't know if a lot of people realized or kind of, predicted or anticipated coming into the year. I think a lot of people thought they'd take a jump up and take a definite, step in the right direction, but I don't know if anybody anticipated it being, a number two seed. But that's credit to Cheryl Reeve, like you said, Claire, and that entire front office, and as well as the players, that they brought in, and the existing players as well. But it's been remarkable to see, just how cohesive and how, close this group is, not only, on the court, but also off the court. It's very, very evident, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, this is a team that was number 9 in the preseason power rankings and
Hmm.
12 teams in the WNBA. So basically, they were saying that the Lynx were not even going to make the playoffs this year, which is
Right.
insane to think about now, where they are here in the second round and having a legitimate chance, as you said, to win a title. So yeah, it's been a great year.
Are you a fantasy sports fan looking for something different? Welcome to Fantasy Sports Evo, a completely new way to play daily fantasy sports. This is not just your average DFS app. With Evo, you pick teams, not players, to build your lineup. You heard that right, teams. Their team-based platform brings fantasy sports to a whole new level. Casual sports fans will like their simplified platform, and diehard fantasy players will enjoy playing in addition to their current platform of choice. Evo is for everybody. Evo is largely managed by a group of women who had previously found traditional fantasy sports too time consuming. With Evo's streamlined approach, DFS is more accessible to everyone. Fantasy Sports Evo is licensed and available in 28 states and Canada. Download the app today and use the promo code LYNX, LYNX, to receive a 100% deposit match plus $10 payable credit. Fantasy Sports Evo is the next evolution of fantasy sports. Give it a try today. Must be a legal gambling age of located where Evo is available. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Before we jump into the semifinal round here, I want to talk to you a little bit about Nafisa Collier. You talked about her a little bit, how she's been, I'll use Cheryl's term, phenomenal,
There we
here
go.
this
No.
year. But I don't even know how to describe her anymore. I mean, she obviously had a great season, regular season. This postseason, she's been absolutely unreal. But if, in your eyes, how would you describe Fee's season that she's had so far?
For Fee's season, I would just describe it as unique. I
Hmm.
really feel like Courtney Williams was saying this at practice the other day that Fee's making history right now, and
Right.
she's absolutely right. And it needs to be talked about. There are so many talented players in the WNBA, and there are so many players here in this league that are having historic seasons, and they deserve a national media attention. But Nafisa Collier needs more. I mean, what she did in round number 1 against the Phoenix Mercury, you talk about the highest points per game average ever in a series in WNBA history. You talk about tying the WNBA record for most points scored in a WNBA playoff game, and breaking Maya Moore's record for most points ever scored by a Lynx player in a postseason contest. I mean, what she was able to do against Phoenix, she dominated the court. It was a swimming pool for her. Like she could just get whatever she wanted. She had so many mismatches, and Fee's so talented. She is like the perfect frame. I saw someone on social media kind of like calling her like the Tim Duncan of the WNBA because she's just so fundamentally sound. Like she's not a flashy player, but she's so good at just being able to create her own shot. If she catches that ball on that low block on the left baseline or that right block, like her fadeaway is just nasty. Like she's going to be able to score 9 times out of 10.
Hmm.
At this rate, it feels like she's going to score 10 times out of 10 when she's in that position. So just what Fee's been able to do in that regard, I feel like coming out of the Olympic break, obviously she was returning from injury and she had just finished wrapping up her time playing over in Paris, which I think really helped her a lot in the sense that it allowed her to kind of get back in the swing of things on the floor as a basketball player. But that second half of the season, I mean, Fee was coming out hot, and she got a well-deserved honor being Player of the Month for August in the WNBA on the Western Conference side. And then I felt like she finished the regular season also on a high note too. But playoff Fee, man, she's
Hmm.
different. Those first two games at Target Center, she legitimately controlled the game. And I was even saying on the broadcast, I just felt like that was probably the most dominant performance of basketball that I've seen in person in a long time on any side. I mean, and I've been able to have the pleasure of seeing these NBA games and college games and whatnot. I mean, but what Fee was able to do in that first round series against the Mercury, man, that was absolutely remarkable, and it was breathtaking, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that kind of surprises me about Fee or is kind of remarkable to me is that obviously, she puts up incredible numbers, MVP type numbers, but what it's weird watching her play because she takes over games at various moments, but she's just so steady throughout the game that you could look at, the box score. You could be watching the game, and then all of a sudden you look at the box score in the, let's say midway through the second quarter, and she has 23, 5, and 4 and 3 blocks. Like it's just unbelievable how like she kind of flies under the radar, but also doesn't at the same time, if that kind of makes sense. But she's remarkable, and it's just so it's crazy to see it not only happen or even see like the performances that we've had here in the postseason, but the fact that she does it consistently is even more impressive to me. And she's just been absolutely outstanding. Definitely, worthy of the MVP recognition that she got. Asia Wilson obviously is having a historic season, but Fee is taking that next step, and it'll be interesting to see if she's able to kind of cross that finish line. Let's say maybe even next year or beyond, and getting her MVP award that she definitely deserves. But it's been a crazy fun year and a remarkable year for her, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. If Fee's literally like she's just entered her prime. Like this is
Hmm.
not like we're talking about someone that's 33, 34. Like
Right.
she's like this is a player, Nafisa Collier, who will be this level of a player that she is right now for the next like at least 4 to 5 years, in my opinion. And like you said, I do think an MVP. I know Asia Wilson, her historic season, well deserved, but Fee's MVP is coming soon. I'd be very shocked if she doesn't get one in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's you're talking about postseason. Let's look ahead to what we have here in the semifinal round. As people are listening to this podcast, obviously we've gone through one game in the semifinal round, but looking at Minnesota and Connecticut, what are your initial thoughts on these two teams and how they match up, how they stack up? Obviously Connecticut had the 2-1 series advantages here. Minnesota won the most recent game in Connecticut to kind of clinch that two spot. But what are your thoughts here on what we might see in this best of five series?
Well, we're going to see definitely a back and forth series, Mitchell. I'll
Hmm.
tell you that. Connecticut is a very strong team. They are a hard team to take down. I mean, I can testify to that sitting courtside at that third and final regular season meeting over at Mohegan Sun. I was like, man, in the first half, I was like, we got this. I felt like we came out swinging in that ball game, and then all of a sudden, that second half and that fourth quarter specifically, Connecticut just kept trading baskets with us. And Nafisa Collier even said that it felt like there was like 3 game winners for us in that game because there were so many like dagger shots that I thought we had, and then all of a sudden it's Alyssa Thomas coming back or DeWanna
Hmm.
Bonner, Marina Mabry. So that Connecticut Sun team, they got a lot of experience, a lot of wealth. I honestly, I feel like they poised the bigger threat to us right now than New York or Vegas would. I just because Connecticut, they're the team that actually won a season series against us in the regular
Hmm.
season. They had our number there. It didn't even look like we were going to get a win against them until Bridget Carlton hits that miraculous shot in the fourth quarter of meeting number 3. So no doubt that Connecticut is a very tough team, and they are a team. When you look at the age of their roster, they are on the older side, so they are trying to win now. It's not like they are a team where if we had seen the Fever in round number 2, where okay, you're seeing a team on the younger side that knows they'll be back for years to come. No, Connecticut's trying to win now, which makes
Hmm.
them a difficult threat here in the postseason. But I think having home court advantage is huge for the Lynx because you just look at this series and the way it could go. This is a series that could be tight, and for whatever reason. I hope it doesn't, but if it does get to 5 games, at least you know that fifth game would be played at Target Center and it would be played in front of those Lynx fans. But I think this series, you're going to see a lot of back and forth. You're going to see that no lead is safe. Even if a team is able to get up by 10, that other team is going to find a way to come back because these teams are just so evenly matched and they're having great years. And Connecticut obviously had that really hot start to the regular season, then they kind of cooled down a little bit. But I think they picked off at the end of the season, and adding Marina Mayberry was huge because they
Yes.
need another scorer in there in that mix. And having her on that roster now, alongside Thomas, Bonner, and even Dejanay Carrington. I mean, the season she's having
Mhm.
as well. They've got a lot of players that it can be called quote unquote X factors that can really just change the course of a game from start to finish. So it's going to be a competitive series for Minnesota. They're going to have to earn it. But that's the beauty of the playoffs. This is why you play the game. This is why you go deep because you get the chance to really make your mark here and make your name. And if they can beat the Connecticut Sun, I think they'll feel really good because this is a Sun team that obviously is a tough test, but one that Minnesota can just stay poised and play Lynx basketball. I see no reason why they can't advance to the next round.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, even looking at, you talk about it going back and forth. You look at the 3 games that these two teams played against each other. They literally have they're almost identical,
Yeah.
as far as the performances on both ends of the floor. I mean, you even look at, the team, or both of them over the course of the regular season. I mean, defensive rating, Connecticut ranked number one in the league at what, 94.1. Minnesota was literally right behind them at 94.8. Like they're so similar, and the three games during the regular season. I mean, you could argue that Minnesota should have won probably 2 of those, just with that. The first game that went into overtime, the 1 point game, that controversial call towards the end. But I mean, this matchup, I 100% agree with you. I think it will go back and forth. I do think personally that it's going to go 5 games just because they're so evenly matched, and we could probably, very well see every single one of these games be decided within 5 points. I mean, it's going to be, I think, that close. And the thing that I think plays into Minnesota's favor as well, you mentioned the home court advantage, and I definitely agree with that. But I also the in-series adjustments and in-game adjustments. I think that's something that plays into Minnesota's favor too, because who's leading the Minnesota Lynx? It's Cheryl Reeve, who's one of the best in-game adjusters, in-season adjusters, in-series adjusters that we've seen. And that's something I think that will play a huge factor into this, just that constant chess match from game to game. And yeah, I do agree with you too that if Minnesota is able to come out of this series, they're sitting in a good spot. Obviously, they'd be sitting in a great spot because they'd be in the finals. But I mean, they would be, I think I view Connecticut maybe as a tougher team than the other two that are left, or whoever that Minnesota or whoever would face in the finals. But this series is. I always say that the postseason is exciting. I mean, the first round series between Minnesota and Phoenix was exciting, but this series is going to be incredible, and I can't wait to see it unfold and see what we see on the court. So it'll be a fun series, that's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, yeah, you look at those regular season meetings, right? The first meeting, as you said, going to overtime. Second meeting, it was single digits, but Cheryl Reeves said that they just didn't play good basketball that
Hmm.
meeting, and that was also a game where Nafisa Collier left the game early. So playoff basketball is a different breed, and of course, we only saw them one time with the state of the roster they have now with Mabry on their side. So and our Lynx players have gotten better, a lot better since then. I mean, that first meeting against Connecticut was just game number 3 of the regular season, a game in which
Right.
Diamond Miller was still starting at that point. I believe that was actually the game that she ended up leaving and
Hmm.
getting fully injured in. But yeah, I mean, you just look at all the regular season meetings. Of course, you look back and you try to figure out, okay, what are some of the common trends and similarities I see in these meetings. But at the end of the day, I mean, playoff basketball is just so different. So it's hard to go back to those regular season meetings and give a prediction just based on that. I think you got to look at where these two teams are now. And these two teams are playing some of their best basketball of the season right now.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that I think is also a good sign for Minnesota is winning that last game of the the right at the end of the regular season, the last game of the season series. Obviously the at the end of the year, both teams are playing how you would expect them to when they enter the postseason. So I think that was a good test for Minnesota to kind of measure themselves and where they're at. And I think, not just that game, but winning that game has really sparked a belief in this team. And I think they're riding the hot hand, and I think that's going to be tough to stop whoever they face. But it'll be interesting to see what happens and to see the rest of this postseason unfold and to see once we get to best of five series. I think for me, that's my personal favorite time of the year. Just because you get more than three games if it goes like in the first round, but you get more of a chess match. And to me, as a basketball junkie, I absolutely love that. I love seeing the coaching staffs scheme against each other and kind of guess what the other team is going to do. And it's a lot of fun to see them go back and forth. So it's postseason basketball is awesome, and it's the best time of the year, that's for sure.
It certainly is.
What do you think of just quickly kind of touching on the other side? We kind of talked about New York and Las Vegas. What do you think of that matchup? And ultimately, who do you think might come out on top and reach the WNBA finals?
Man, that is going to be an exciting matchup. Of
Hmm.
course, those two teams seeing each other now in a different round. There's a lot at stake. Vegas, they impressed me in round number one against Seattle. Coming into the end of the regular season, I was thinking, okay, it's Liberty all the way. Like it is their path just seems so clear with the way they're playing. But Vegas is starting to get really good. Asia Wilson, of course, playing top tier. Thought Kelsey Plum's performance in that last game against Seattle was really strong. For Vegas, them being the lower seed, if they're able to go ahead and win some games on the road over at New York and in game one, game two, they'll be set. I think if they win at least one, they'll win the series. If New
Hmm.
York's able to take care of business and protect home court, then it's their series to lose at that point. So I do think that series as well will go to 5 games. It was so interesting in the first round. It was kind of like my first time, obviously, seeing everything unfold in real time as a broadcaster, like having to update the listeners on all of these games throughout the broadcast. But it's like, man, every series in that first round, no series went to 3 games.
Hmm.
Every team protected home court. So that's why if the road team can get a W here in the second round, if you can steal one on the road, then I think you're in good shape. So it's going to go to 5 games. That's my prediction. As of now, I'm probably still going to slightly lean towards New York,
Hmm.
but it's like a 51 versus 49% chance of New York having 51, Vegas 49. Either matchup would be intriguing for Minnesota, but both teams are so good. But I do think New York probably will get the slight edge on top.
Yeah, I agree. And if it does end up being, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but if it does end up being also Minnesota, New York, or Minnesota, Las Vegas, I mean, either one, I think it would be an incredible series. I would love to see New York, Minnesota battle it out just because the regular season matchups, including the Commissioner's Cup championship, they were just fun games to watch.
Oh yeah.
And that would be a lot of fun to watch, and it would be fun to have this team back in the finals. It would be that being the Lynx. It's been for a team that was in had four WNBA championships in the kind of the last quote unquote era, and not being back in the WNBA finals since 2017. It's been it would be a lot of fun to see them back and see them fight for a championship again, and also see Target Center absolutely rocking. That is one of my favorite things too. But I, Wendell, I really do. As we talk about this, I do appreciate you joining. I do appreciate everything that you've done throughout this entire season and providing Great content, not only the different forms that you had mentioned, podcast, social media, and on the radio as well. It's been a lot of fun following, and let's do it some more, huh? Should we let's not stop in the semifinals here. Let's keep it rolling, and I want to keep hearing you and seeing all the Lynx stuff here throughout the rest of the postseason. But let's not stop in the semifinals.
Oh yes, sir. Let's go all the way. Definitely got some fun ideas planned if we can get to the finals. And I was starting to think about last week. I had a pretty cool idea. I thought about if we win it all, something that I would do. So hopefully we can
Okay.
go all the way here. But the first season, man, the fact that I have a chance of calling the WNBA finals in my first season, that would
Mhm.
be. So yeah, let's go all the way here, Mitchell.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Well, Wendell, I appreciate you joining, and we'll touch base with you again soon. Thanks again for taking the time.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Thank you once again to Wendell for joining the podcast this week. As I mentioned at the beginning, for me, it was really exciting to have Wendell on just because he's so insightful. He's so close to the team, so knowledgeable too. And you can definitely tell in the conversation we had that he's amped up about this postseason run, as are a lot of the fans who follow the Lynx as well as any WNBA fan. It's a fun time of the year. Playoff basketball is to me is the best basketball that we get throughout the year. So it's great to see the Lynx. It's great to see the rest of the remaining teams left here in the playoff field fight for a WNBA title, and hopefully Wendell is calling more games beyond the semifinals series. So once again, thank you to Wendell. I appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast here this week. I also want to give a shout out to Jeremy Rushing for producing this podcast every week as he does, or every episode, every other week. Jeremy does a great job. He's been a great partner here at Hitting the Hardwood, and I really do appreciate everything that he does. Now, with that said, you heard the ad at the beginning or in the middle of the recording with Wendell, but I want to give a shout out to one of our newest partners, as well as our other two existing partners. But the first one is Fantasy Sports Evo, a new way to play fantasy sports, or daily fantasy sports, where you you put wagers down on teams, not players. I've really enjoyed using it. It's a new platform that I was recently introduced to as well. And I've really enjoyed using it, and it's been a lot of fun actually. So there's WNBA competitions, there's any other sports league. You can do NBA, NFL, NHL, and beyond. So please go check out Fantasy Sports Evo. If you use the promo code when you first sign up through their website, use the promo code LYNX, LYNX, and you get a free $10 in free play. So go check that out. Go support them because they ultimately do support Hitting the Hardwood, and we really do appreciate their support. Beyond that, I want to give a shout out to our two other partners since day one, that being Homage and Better Edge. We'll start with Homage. Homage is a vintage clothing store, as you well know. And we are excited to be partnering with them, continuing to partner with them for the second season. But also they do some great work as far as what they produce, the clothing that they produce. Not only just WNBA gear, they have logo hoodies, T-shirts, but they also do vintage stuff as well. So it's a really cool website. Go check them out, HOMAGE.com. If you go to our website and click on the Partners tab, you'll be able to find them. There's two links in there, one right to Minnesota Lynx gear and the other to WNBA gear. If you purchase anything through those links, there's nothing that it costs you and nothing extra, but it does come back. A portion of that comes back in sports Hitting the Hardwood. So you can find that out, like I said, on our website. Head over to the Partners tab and check out our partners, and then go down to Homage. The other one is Better Edge. Better Edge is one of my favorite betting platforms, just like I said with Fantasy Sports Evo. Better Edge, BETTOR, edge.com. You can check them out, and you can get, you can place some bets and do really anything on that platform. It's a very user-friendly platform. The guys are great at Better Edge. And they've also supported Hitting the Hardwood since day one. If you go to Better Edge, betteredge.com/links. Use the promo code LYNX, LYNX. You get a free $20 in free play. So check them out. Check out all of our partners. We really do appreciate everything that you do for Hitting the Hardwood. With that said, I'm really excited to continue to see this postseason unfold. Really looking forward to what we will see the rest of the semifinals as well as in the WNBA finals. And it's hard to believe we're only a couple weeks away from the end of the season. So it's a fun time of the year. Final 4 teams left, and it'll only get more entertaining from here. So thank you again for listening, and I will check in with you guys next time.